Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Darius Sethna. We have a lot to get into this week, especially with the NBA draft passing us by this past Wednesday. Cavs had the 5th overall pick. We'll talk a lot more about that. We also have more Browns updates for you, as well as MLS, Premier League, all of that news coming up for you also this week. So stay tuned. The Cleveland Sports Show is right up next. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Darius Sethna of NordoniaHills.News, and the Cleveland Sports Show starts right now. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Darius Sethna. As I mentioned, we have a lot to discuss this week, especially with the NBA draft passing us by. Cavs had the 5th overall pick, selecting Isaac Okoro out of Auburn in Michigan. We'll get more into that, as well as more NBA updates, as well as the Browns. But right now, it's time to lock in on our sports fact of the day. And this is a hockey fact for you, ladies and gentlemen. It takes us back all the way to 1934. Today's date is November 20th, 2020. And on this day, November 20th, 1934, Toronto Maple Leaf Harvey, also known as Busher Jackson, is the first person in Major League Hockey history to score 4 goals in one period. Now, to be a little more specific on that 4 goals in one period's fact, it actually would be in the third period of a 5-2 victory for Toronto over the St. Louis Eagles at that time. The record set by Jackson has not been surpassed. However, 11 players have matched it up to this point in time. Additionally, along with that 4-goal period tally to his name, Jackson was also named to 3 additional All-Star teams during this time, placed on the second team in 1932-33, as well as on the first team in the 2 years afterwards, in 1933-34 and 34-35. Jackson would play most of his career with Toronto. He would spend the latter years of his career in the United States playing for the New York Americans for 2 seasons and then the Boston Bruins. Jackson's final season would be in the 1943-44 season. He would pass away in 1966. But hey, on this day, the best scoring period in NHL history took place by Busher Jackson in 1934 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, let's get you updated with your Premier League highlights, ladies and gentlemen. We had a week off last week for Premier League, and now we're back. Match day 9 of 38 set to begin this weekend. Newcastle going up against Chelsea, Aston Villa taking on Brighton, Tottenham going up against Manchester City. It's Manchester United taking on West Brom for another matchup. On Sunday, the 22nd, we have Fulham taking up Everton. Sheffield United will be going up against West Ham. Leeds United facing off against Arsenal this Sunday at 11:30. Liverpool taking on Leicester City at 2:15. Burnley taking on Crystal Palace on Monday at 12:30 p.m. And then the final game of this match week is the Wolves going up against Southampton. That'll be Monday the 23rd at 3 p.m. Our overall standings for the Premier League. Leicester City still remains at the top of the league with a record of 6 wins, 0 draws, and 2 losses for 18 combined points. Tottenham Hotspur comes in at second place with 5 wins, 2 draws, and a loss for 17 points. Tied with, in terms of points, with Tottenham Hotspur is Liverpool. They come in with the same record as Tottenham. The only difference is that goal differential. Southampton comes in at 4th place. 8 matches played for them so far. 5 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses for them on the season for 16 total points. Chelsea come in at 5th place with 15 points thanks to a 4-3-1 record. So that rounds out your top 5 this week in the Premier League. Additionally, player stats, we still have, nothing has changed this past week. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Jamie Vardy, Mohamed Salah, and Son Heung-min head into match day 3 as the 4 top goal scorers in the Premier League. Harry Kane and Patrick Bamford come in 2nd place. In terms of assists, Harry Kane with 8 assists. As I mentioned, these stats aren't changing from last week given the fact that the Premier League had a week off. Harry Kane, 8 assists. Jack Grealish and John McGinn, both of Aston Villa, respectively with 5 assists and 4 assists. Aaron Cresswell and Bruno Fernandes of West Ham and Manchester United, only 2 players who have 3 assists. We have multiple players in the Premier League this year who have multiple assists. And that concludes our updates this week for the Premier League. We'll have more to talk about and update you with those matches. We'll have new matches to talk about in our upcoming episodes of the Cleveland Sports Show. But we have MLS news that I really want to dive into. Playoffs officially begin today, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, today, Friday, November 20th. It all starts with an Eastern Conference play-in round that will begin today at 6:30 p.m. It'll begin with the New England Revolution going up against the Montreal Impact. Our next game in the play-in round will be Nashville going up against Inter Miami. Now, the way this will work is that we're going to have 2 winners tonight, and after we get those 2 winners, 1 winner from each game, we're going to have those final seedings in the MLS Eastern Conference, and based off of those 2 winners from tonight, the team who's the higher seed will play Toronto FC in the first round of the MLS playoffs. That game will be November 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and then the lower seed will take on the first place team in the East, the Philadelphia Union. That game will be November 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But if you're a Columbus Crew fan, you don't have to worry about a play-in game because guess what? The Crew are already have a playoff spot. It's been secured, and they already have their playoff matchup secured as well. The Crew will be facing off against the New York Red Bulls. That'll be tomorrow at 3 o'clock p.m. from MAPFRE Stadium in Columbus. Additional matchups in the MLS playoffs in this first round include Orlando City taking on NYCFC. Sporting Kansas City will be taking on San Jose on Sunday at 4 p.m. The other 2 games for Sunday, the 22nd, include Minnesota going up against Colorado at 7:30 p.m., and then Portland will be facing off against FC Dallas at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. As I mentioned, we still have 2 winners in the Eastern Conference, 2 teams who still need a spot. We'll figure out who those 2 teams are tonight with the play-in rounds. So Toronto and Philadelphia are still waiting for who their opponents are going to be. But Tuesday, the 24th, does offer 1 completed matchup that we'll have for you. That'll be a late-night game on the West Coast at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Seattle Sounders will be taking on LAFC. The Cup Conference semifinals of the MLS will kick off on Sunday, the 29th of November. The conference finals in the MLS for each conference will begin on an end as well on the same day. That day is December 6th. And then the MLS Cup Final is going to be here before you know it. December 12th at 8 p.m. is the MLS Cup. Heading into the playoffs, here are our top assists in the MLS, top stats, I should say. Diego Rossi leads the league in scoring with 16 goals on the season. Yassi Zardes of the Columbus Crew comes in at second place with 13 goals. Raul Ruidiaz of the Seattle Sounders and Robert Barrich of Chicago are tied for third, each of those players with 12 goals on the season. In terms of assists, Alejandro Pozuelo of Toronto FC has 9 assists so far on the season. He's looking to hopefully increase that now that his team's in the playoffs. We'll see who he goes up against, who he and his team go up against. Cristian Espinosa of San Jose, one of many players in the MLS who are tied for that second spot. Espinosa, Darwin Quintero of the Houston Dynamo, Diego Valeri of Portland are only a few players who are tied for that second place spot. Each of those players with 7 assists. Pedro Santos of the Columbus Crew is one of those players. He has 7 assists on the season. But don't forget, the big takeaway of my MLS portion of today's show are those play-in game matches for the Eastern Conference. You're not going to want to miss those. Once again, to name it out for you, New England will be taking on the Montreal Impact today at 6:30 p.m. Additionally, Nashville going up against Inter Miami at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Both those games are today, and you can catch both of those games on these respective channels. You can catch the Nashville-Miami game on ESPN2, and you can catch the New England-Montreal game on FS1, Fox Sports 1, or whatever your cable provider has. But that concludes our MLS news for this week.